Okay, I don't know. Oh, the ads are still on. That's okay. That's okay. The ad is ending. Why is that such a long ad? What the heck? Let me fix this. I will fix this. I will fix this. Okay. Oh, is the ad still running? Very quiet. It's very quiet. Oh, that might be my mic actually. Is this better? Uh this should be good. Oh, there we go. Still quiet. Is this better? Hopefully. It might be quiet if you're also seeing an ad, but I just turned off the ads. So, okay, the ad is over. All right, cool. Let me actually get started. Hello, welcome everyone. I am the Chosen Giraffe, also known as Sid, and we're here for another game dev interview. Woo, yay! It is currently very, very cold in my room. I am freezing. I feel like I'm gonna get myself sick. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce our next interviewee. Is that how I say it? Yes, maybe. Okay, so Glueblade is a blob with too many hobbies, one of which has somewhat recently become game dev. They're trying to gradually build up their skills with each project so they can make things that are relevant to their interests and hopefully the interests of some other people. So let's go. Where's my. Okay, so let me unmute myself and let's say hello to Glueblade. Hello? Hello, hello.
Hello.
Whoa. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, can everyone hear?
Yes, very nice. Yes, thank you for having me.
Yay! I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Yes, hello.
And if you type !collab, you can see their socials. Most importantly,
Yeah.
their itch page with gorgeous
Yes,
art.
because itch is like the one where I actually post my stuff and not just my silly posts. So.
All right, so go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do and all that jazz.
Yes, so I'm Glueblade. Well, I guess I'm a hobby game developer, is what you would call it. Mostly I've made some little visual novels so far, but also like one little Game Boy game. And I guess I just do all sorts of art stuff as a hobby. So, like character design, sometimes comics, just illustrations in general. Sometimes I write. And yeah, all of these skills ended up being kind of useful for game development. And so I ended up making a few games last year, which was pretty fun.
Ooh, yay. So I guess we could go ahead and get started straight into the first question. Do you have a biggest inspiration? And if so, how do you use that inspiration in your work?
So I wouldn't say I have like one big inspiration. I think I'm just generally inspired by, I would say, more or less everything around me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if I enjoy a game, then often it kind of inspires me to maybe make something similar or incorporate ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe if I didn't enjoy something, it makes me think about how I would do it differently so I would like it. And the same way, it's kind of like if I read a book, then that can also give me some inspiration. Or just, if I go outside and I see pretty landscapes, that kind of inspires me as well for like my art, for example. And yeah, I think one thing that also kind of contributed was when I participated in game jams.
Mm-hmm.
Then usually I would play the games of the other participants, and that would also give me a lot of ideas for other things that I could make in my own games.
Right. I feel like when I look at your art, it's very I don't know, it's very calming, it's very beautiful, and I love the
Thank
way
you.
that it's so unique and you definitely have like your own style and it's gorgeous. And I
Thank
totally
you.
agree with the seeing other people make games during game jams and you're like, I want to do that.
Yeah, especially for the O2A2 gem, which is like one of what's it called short for only one of any asset, where it's really cool to see what people can do with like really limited amount of assets
Right,
and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, you think, you only have 1,000 words, but you can actually tell such a big story with it.
right, right. All right, moving on to the next question. What are some things you love about the industry? And you do this as a hobby, so it could be kind of different than like people who do this for a living. So, what are some things
Yeah.
you love about it?
So obviously I'm not really in the industry, like I guess game development industry, because yeah, I'm a hobby developer, so I just do it on my own. But I think what I really like about like the visual novel community, which yeah, it's not really an industry, but close enough, I guess, is just people are just really like supportive, and I
Right,
guess I would say they're just like interested in each other. Like you can tell they love visual novels, and you can tell people are just not just interested in making their own stuff, but also in playing other people's stuff.
right,
So when you participate in a game jam, you know, you can like you just know that many people, they play other people's entries and often they leave really, really nice comments that are very thoughtful. And I think that's just, really encouraging as a community to be in.
right. It is because it's always scary putting your own work out there. So,
Yeah.
knowing that at least someone will always like it, it's like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think, if you're just starting out, you're not really known, and then it's just nice to know that there's a whole community of people who will take time to, play games and check out, jam submissions
Right,
and take the time to leave a nice comment.
right,
So that's very encouraging because otherwise it just feels like, nobody cares what you make. And it
right.
can.
It's like you're like screaming out into the void.
Yeah, exactly. I think that happens easily. So it's just nice to have, such a vivid community.
Right. So, do you have a dream work you want to create, whether it's like a story, a certain type of art style, anything like that?
Uh, I don't really know. I think like I don't have the one like big dream work I'm like imagining right now, but it's like I guess there's a few things like concepts I would really like to do. I think mm, one thing I always imagine is just making something with like really complicated choices and
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of branching and that sort of thing, which I think would just be difficult to do because you have to keep track of everything
Right.
and make sure everything connects well and things like that. So, but that's something I would like to do in the future.
Right. I've seen like some of these visual novels have like
Mm.
really intense branching and like a bunch of
Yeah.
endings and it's like how do you even organize all of that?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it seems so easy when you imagine it, but then, as soon as you have more than 5 choices, your spreadsheets start looking terrible. So
Right.
it's just really impressive if somebody can make everything match up without, feeling like really disjointed.
Right, right.
Or like, sometimes you feel kind of cheated because, you make a choice and then you think it will be super meaningful, but then everything else just kind of branches back into one story and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you feel like why did I even think so much about what choices I
What
make?
was the point? The secret is
Yeah.
flow charts instead of oh yeah, flow charts. I feel like flow
I guess that
charts.
would have been the correct word, but
Yeah, I
like even flowcharts, like at some point they get too big for your
right,
screen and
right.
then you're in trouble.
I've worked on some games that have like really extensive flow charts, and then I start getting confused, and I'm like, where am I even looking at? Where am I starting? How do I do this?
Yeah. But yeah, just something. Yeah, I just love these kinds of games where you can, play them many times and just really dig
Mm-hmm.
into it, like what sort of choice affects what sort of story branch later. So that's something I think is really cool.
Right. So, I'm going to kind of segue into this question. On your itch page, you have a
Yeah.
lot of nature and like flower
Yes.
motifs. Is there a
That is true.
reason for that?
Uh, there's not really a reason. I just like plants, I guess. So, one thing I've kind of noticed when I work on games is that somehow my motivation increases a lot when I just tell myself I can include plants in some way. So, yeah, it just kind of happens that I have like an idea for a story, and I think, well, I could also like include plants somehow, and
Right.
suddenly I just the chances of me actually finishing has doubled somehow. So
Right.
yeah, I just like plants, and I think they're fun to draw, and they look nice.
I
So
feel like
it's like,
every game dev has at least like one thing they like to include in their games, even if they don't realize it. And you can kind
yeah,
of like spot it in all the games they release.
basically yes.
So, what are some hobbies of yours? Well, that you use in your work? Or do you like keeping
Uh,
all of your hobbies separate?
well, I wouldn't say I keep them separate. I mean, before I started, using it for game developing, I just like drawing in general.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that became very useful when I wanted to make a visual novel, and then, I could just draw all the art myself. So
Mm-hmm.
in that way, that definitely helped. And aside from that, I mean, of course, all my hobbies that involve consuming stories in some way, like reading or playing games,
Right.
is of course quite useful because that way you get inspiration and you can do some research for how other people do things. And I guess aside from that, I think most of my other hobbies would be more like inspiration, I guess. Like if I travel or take photos, then of course, it can inspire me for locations or for stories,
Mm-hmm.
and I can use it as reference material, that sort of thing.
So, do you have like you said you like to travel? Do you have like a folder filled with like all the pictures that you take to use in games?
So, like, I don't have a separate folder
Mm-hmm.
for photos that I want to use. I just, have my folder of my photos. And I guess if I need something, I just look through it. Because, I
Right.
mean, usually I remember the date where I traveled to a certain place and I can just look at those folders. Like, my photos are separate by date.
Mm-hmm.
And I can use that, for example.
Is there a place you've ever gone or something you've seen and you like immediately thought I want to make a game around this or this inspired me to draw something based off of this?
Uh, I'm not sure exactly. So, actually, for my first O2A2 entry, I actually used the photo I took.
Ooh.
So what happened? So this was not quite deliberate, but what happened was that I went to Poland for a friend's wedding, and I visited the botanic garden there, and just took a bunch of pictures. And then on the train ride back, I learned about the O2A2 jam that was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't really have experience with Ren'Py, so I decided to make my life a bit easier. Instead of drawing art, I would just use these photos. So that was quite convenient, and I think just looking at these photos also helped me like choose the mood for the story and so on. So I think that was relatively direct inspiration in that sense.
It's really also convenient considering like how the concept of O2A2 can like seem stressful because you have such like
Yeah.
the limited amount of time, but so that's really smart using like a real picture. Definitely saves time.
Yeah, definitely it made things easier, and I think that's kind of one of my approaches that I've kind of developed, is that with each project I kind of decide on like one or two things I really want to focus on that I will put a lot of effort into,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest, I usually tell myself, just my average performance is good enough. So for that one, my goal was just to make a visual novel and to like learn how to use Ren'Py again after I hadn't touched it in a lot of years,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of helped with just making something without stressing too much about it. Whereas, for example, for the next one, I really wanted to put effort into the art, so I didn't, you know, well, I mean, I did still put effort into it, but I
Mm-hmm.
decided to have a relatively simple plot, so I
Right,
wouldn't
right,
stress on that end, for example.
right. Do you have like any of like the current games you've released? Do you have a favorite out of them, or do you like them all the same?
Uh, I'm not sure. I guess I kind of like them all the same because, for each of them, I learned something in them and
Mm-hmm.
so on. Mm, well, it's kind of hard to say because, yeah,
It's kind
let
of
me
like
think.
that. Oh, I like all of them. I can't
Yeah,
choose
it's
a
like,
favorite.
I think there's one that I like a lot, but then there's another one that I also like a lot, so it's kind of hard to.
Right, you just like them
Uh,
in like different
okay.
ways.
Yeah, it's like that kind of thing. I think right now my most positive feelings are probably Blessing of the Flower Goddess, just because recently I've gotten a really nice comment on it, and
Oh
there's
yeah.
been and like somebody with like I guess a large amount of followers has like given it a good rating and so on. So I've just seen more traffic on it, and it's just been nice that like even after I think it's been in April that I made it. That like even after almost a year, there's it
Hmm.
still gets some attention and some love from people. So that's been a really nice
Yeah,
thing to experience.
that is always really nice when you see a good comment and you're like, haha, I did good. Which of
Yeah.
your games was the hardest to make?
Oof. That's also a different question because I think all of them have been kind of a struggle in different ways.
Right.
So yeah, so like the first one for I think in 2022 was Flower Field, and it was just I think that was pretty smooth, but it was the first game I published.
Mm-hmm.
So of course that was a bit challenging in some ways, and then Blessing of the Flower Goddess when it was the next one. It was I guess a lot more ambitious in that sense, since I wanted to have like some point and click elements, and I had some I guess relatively defined ideas for what I wanted the art to be like. So it was I guess I just spent a lot of time, getting the art right and figuring out programming things, even though I have very little coding experience.
Right.
And then Half a Wreath of Roses itself is actually quite easy, but I had actually a completely different idea initially, and I just couldn't make the concept work. So I just spent a lot of time like rethinking it and
Mm-hmm.
seeing, how I could still pull something off for that Auto 2 jam. So that was kind of hard there. But once I figured something else out, it was actually very smooth. And then Destruction Leaf was kind of harder because like it was the first non-O2A2 one, so of
Mm-hmm.
course I had a lot more assets I could, work
Use,
with and
yeah.
just a lot more scope to deal with. And I think it was fine. It's just that I think my development process is kind of chaotic. And that's, I think, okay if you're a solo developer, but I kind of
Right.
often felt like I had to be a bit more structured and, get a proper outline done before do anything else. And I think just figuring out what order to do things in a way that worked was, for example, kind of hard. And I think just letting myself, because I had quite a few art assets planned
Mm-hmm.
and not that much time left. So I kind of had to allow myself to do, I'll try each of them once and I'll just have to use it instead of, you know, doing all of them over and over again until I'm satisfied. So I think that was also kind of a learning experience in that sense.
So
So yeah.
you mentioned that you basically had to learn coding. Does it come easy to you or is it a struggle?
It's kind of a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, RenPy luckily is very user friendly and like
Right.
very simple to use. So I think a lot of the basic RenPy stuff was taught. Also, hello T Sugar,
Hi
alas.
T.
Yeah, so I like lot of the basic stuff, like, just dialogue or like branching, like menus where you can choose stuff, that was relatively easy.
Mm-hmm.
But the more advanced stuff, like doing like image maps or like image buttons and stuff like that, was quite difficult. Like for one game, I wanted to do a thing where like you can do some point and click where like if you hover over an image, like your cursor changes
Uh-huh.
to like a magnifying glass.
Uh-huh.
And I could not figure out how to do that, and tried like some really, really complicated stuff from
Right.
10-year-old forum discussions, and then I asked in the Dev Talk Discord, and it was actually super simple to do,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so that happens.
I feel
But yeah,
like with coding, it can definitely be hard to like learn on your own and figure out how to do something. But like once you
yeah,
ask someone, it's like, oh, okay. They told me how to do it. That's much simpler.
yeah. So yeah, like I don't think it's like super hard, but it's definitely something I have relatively little experience in, and sometimes it just gets hard to figure out how to do something. But hopefully I will learn as I go.
All right, on to the next question. Is there one thing that you're looking forward to in the future in terms of making games?
I don't know, I guess just making more games in general and
Mm-hmm.
seeing other people make more games. There's one thing I've have planned for this year, which is like, I guess kind of my theme for this year is to like tie up loose ends, like on my, well, not all of them, but like, finish some projects that are
Uh-huh.
half done, things like that, finish video games I've abandoned, and things like that.
What
So
what games are you
one of
planning on playing?
so right now I am playing Atelier Furious because I started that last year and didn't get very far in it. So that's what I'm playing, and I finished, I think it was called Monster Sanctuary, which is like a monster collecting Metroidvania, which I'd also started last year.
Ooh.
Which was cool. It was like, I was like on like the second to last boss fight and I lost, and I just didn't feel motivated to try again. But then I finally picked it back up like last month and finished it. So that was a good feeling to just have that done.
Right.
But yeah, so what I'm planning, like in terms of the end development, is I had one thing in, I think, May last year. So that was actually, I think it was called Adventure Game Jam or something, and it was 2 weeks long, and I had an idea for it, and it was like my first non-O2A2 project. And it was very, I was kind of drunk with power because I was like, oh, I can have so many assets, I can have so many words, and I guess I overscoped a little bit. I mean, I couldn't really estimate how long, like how much my idea would need. So, and yeah, like for the 2 weeks, actually the first week, I thought I was at like a pretty good pace. Like I had like 2 characters planned with portraits and everything, and got those drawn, and I think I had 1 or 2 backgrounds. And then the second week, I just kind of lost steam and couldn't work like as efficiently. So I just didn't manage to, I guess, finish everything up and get the story written down very well. So I didn't manage to finish it, and that's kind of my plan for hopefully this year, is to
Ooh.
like pick that one back up and try to finish it.
Is there any non-game related plans you have, like in terms of like art or some other stuff?
Yes, so I started kind of spontaneously. I had like a little, oh, you mean non-art or a
Uh,
non?
anything really.
Okay. Yeah, so I had like a little illustration series I'd started on, and that kind of stalled. And I thought I actually like sat down and I thought it was like the 2 last ones I needed, and I painted those. And then I realized that actually there was one other one that, I had drawn it, but I was really not satisfied with how it looks. So I do still need to draw that one. But yeah, so that one was like, I think during October, everybody's doing those Inktober challenges, so I had a little look through all the prompts I had saved, and there was one called Sintember, which sounded kind of cool, so I just kind of grabbed a few items from that list and drew some of those. So once I finish that, I will post it, which hopefully some people will like it. And I also had a comic project that I want to draw, and which I got inspiration for in, I think it was December 2022 yes, 2022. And I started off doing I guess just a story concept and character designs. I even drew some thumbnails. But it was very winter themed, so once spring came, I just kind of lost the steam for it, I guess. And some game jams came up, and so I just kind of put it aside for a bit. But that's another thing I would really like to pick back up.
Sounds like you have a lot of good plans for this year.
Yeah, I have a lot of things, and I think my idea is just to give attention to all those half-done things, because it's kind of... Otherwise, they're always in the back of my head, and feels like I'm juggling a lot of things mentally. So I think if I can finish them up, that would be very nice.
Right.
Oh, I guess one other thing that I started late last year was I wanted to make a little quilt, like a doll-sized quilt.
Ooh.
And I have the pattern planned out and the fabrics, but yeah, I still need to cut them and sew everything. I think that would also be a fun project, because I like sewing, but it's the kind of thing that always gets the lowest priority out of all my hobbies. So I don't do it enough. But yeah, that's some of my plans.
Ooh, it sounds fun. All right, before our next question, I am going to ask if anyone in the chat has any questions. Any at all.
Well, don't be shy.
Yes, do not be shy. It does look like a lot of people are now inspired to do their projects and also download RenPy.
Oh yeah. Yes, come to the dark side.
All right. Asia, I hope I'm saying that right, says, do you have any jams you're looking forward to aside from the only one of each asset one?
Well, see, the problem is for this year, I've actually been thinking I might not have super much time to participate in jams properly. But there are definitely quite a few jams that I like. So I'm a bit sad that I didn't manage to come up with anything for the Queer Vampire Jam, which I think is ending in 3 days. Because, that seems like it should be right up my alley.
Right.
But yeah, I just didn't really have the time or energy for it. So if that happens next year, that would be quite nice.
Yeah, that one looked so fun. And I also didn't have time, and I was like, no.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the entries for that one.
Right. It is a tough time.
Yeah, see, I share, that's what I mean. It's very sad. Oh yes, so for my my project that I'm planning to finish, I realize I shouldn't actually need to be that secretive about it, so I'm just gonna... So originally, because I didn't finish it in the 2-week period, right after that, there was actually, I think, the trans rap jam or something. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but trans themed jam, and they allow you to finish older projects as long as you do a significant amount of development during the jam period. And since my story from that has a non-binary character, I think I think it would fit there. So, I mean, initially I thought, I could finish it in that. So I think if the trans rap jam happens with similar rules again this year, I could try to finish that game, for that jam. Because, well, I guess I'll just say it. So my tentative title is Deer Flight, which I think if I expanded it would be a spoiler. I think I might still need to workshop that title because I'm not sure it comes across well, but it's a sort of medieval fantasy mystery story.
Ooh.
So yes, so that's the idea. And I guess I don't think I'll participate in Spooktober this year, because, yeah, I don't think I'll have time for it.
Right.
But that's usually a cool jam to just look at the entries.
Right, right. All right. So Asia also
Mhm.
says, this is a big one, but is there a theme or mood you'd like to explore in a game that you haven't found the opportunity to? That's a good question.
That is a good question. I mean, I guess, well, I have always wanted to write like a mystery story, so sort of I'm doing that now-ish. Trying to balance, the clues and seeing that sort of thing. So I guess that's what I'm hoping to do soon. Aside from that, I'm not really sure.
I feel
I
like
guess.
I feel like writing mysteries is also super hard
Yeah, it's
because
super hard.
it uses a lot more of your brain power.
Yeah, and I think it's just, you have to get a good mixture of, giving clues, but also not making it too obvious and
Right.
making it feel satisfying.
Right.
So I think that's kind of hard for me because, like if you, for example, write a romance story, it's kind of obvious, like you just, you need good character dynamics, and, if they get together in the end, then the audience usually is quite happy. So it's kind of obvious what to do. But then for a lot of other stories, I think it's harder to figure out how to do it in a way where the reader will be satisfied in the
Right.
end.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. T has the question. What are character tropes you're interested in working on?
Oh dear. Hmm. Well, I guess for tropes, I think I've just realized that the kind of things that I enjoy writing and the sort of things I enjoy reading aren't necessarily the same. So that's kind of a hard question to answer sometimes because, I might have fun reading it, but when I try to write it myself, I might not enjoy it that
Right.
much. And I think one thing I quite like, I don't know if there's a better word for it, but I guess it's called like this sort of unresolved sexual tension where like you have two characters and yeah, they're obviously kind of into each other, but something just keeps getting in the way, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's really fun if you do it well.
Right, right.
So I think that's something that I think is quite neat.
Do you have one that you don't like writing just because it's like super hard to like properly portray it, or it's just like frustrating in general?
Good question. Okay, I will need to have a bit of a think about that one. I think in general, I just don't like it when something is too tropey. I think I just kind of realized that, like as I get older, I'm not sure if it's age or just a general development. But I kind of realized that lately I've kind of been moving away from, I guess, tropey characters to more, I guess, I don't know how to phrase it very well, but like more based on reality.
Right.
So rather than, I think this is something that's kind of, like a lot of the time when you might not be inspired by real people, but you might be inspired by how certain characters are written. So you want to write something similar. And I think, it can be fun because, often it's like, you like a certain character type, so you want something similar in another work, for example. But I think I've been moving more to just writing more directly from like my personal observations or from people like that. So I think, I'm moving away from writing inspired by other writing, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I feel like that's something that's definitely like affected me too. Like I have like the tropes that I like, but I realize like I want to write more complex, I guess, like more realistic, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it can be hard because obviously, like, real life is not necessarily satisfying as a story.
Right.
So I think making that work can be pretty hard. But yeah.
Would you ever write a story based on like an actual experience you've had?
Probably not, like, not directly. Like, I think my inspiration tends to be a lot more, like, I guess, abstract.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So it's like, I guess if I have a stressful experience, that might result in me writing about, someone having a stressful experience, but they wouldn't have the same stressful experience.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, I guess in a more symbolic way, that sort of thing.
Right, right. Okay, any more questions from the chat? You can ask 50 million or none.
Yes. Oh, I guess one thing, like, in terms of tropes, I tend to really enjoy if it's like a silly misunderstandings kind of story. Like, one of my favorite manga is Gekkan Shoujo Nozaki-kun, and there's just a lot of like really wacky misunderstandings.
Right.
And I think that sort of thing is also quite hard to write, because obviously if you do it badly, then it just gets frustrating. And I think
Right.
making it like believable so
Right.
that people
There's
can actually
definitely
see how the misunderstanding happens,
right.
stuff like that.
There's definitely like a balance to how many misunderstandings you can have.
Yeah.
All right, we got pizza questions. Pineapple on pizza.
Not personally a fan of it. Like, I'm not huge on pineapples in the first place, and I don't like baked fruits. So
Yeah, I could see that.
So it's not my thing, but I think like Hawaii toast is nice, because that's like, cheese and ham and pineapple on toast, which I haven't eaten in a long time, but I think that actually works better than pineapple on pizza.
Ketchup on pizza.
I mean, there's already tomato sauce,
Right.
so why would you add ketchup on top of that? Like, ketchup is just tomato sauce with more sugar.
Right.
So
Come on,
do
T. Okay, another question. Any plans to make a VN with more warm colors?
No, that is a personal attack. Yes, so just to give context, I think relatively recently there was this meme going around where like you ask people what like your typical art characteristics are, and then you try to draw without them. And it was pointed out to me that I love like relatively cool colors and just blue everywhere. And I tried to draw something that was like relatively red heavy, but I think I could only bring it up to like 50% red before I could not make myself add more.
I can't do this.
So I don't know if warmer colors will ever happen, but maybe. I mean, one thing I do quite like is to just try to develop the aesthetics for what I want the VN to look like. So maybe there will be one that warrants warmer colors at some point.
Maybe. A small
Maybe.
possibility.
You never know.
All right. Okay, on to the last one. And this is like the promotion time. Oh, no. Thank you for the hey, listen alert redeem. I'm so glad that works. I thought that wasn't working anymore. Okay, so promo time. You can talk about anything you want, one of your works, whether it's a game or your art, and if it's finished or not. Anything you want.
Oh dear. Well, I guess I would just encourage you to take a look at my itch page, because that has my so far published visual novels on it, which are all really short. So if you have like half an hour or an hour of spare time, you can play them. And if you follow me there, then you will also find out when I release something new. So that's cool. I think out of the ones I have on there, I think the one I would like to promote specifically, I guess I'll go with Death Touch on Leaves, because it is the one that I think at least I put the most time into, and like put effort into writing the story and developing the aesthetics. So think that could use a bit more love. And
Yes, give more love.
I am bad at promotion, but basically it's about a sad boy, and he's cursed so that like everything he touches gets its life energy drawn from it, and he likes plants, but yeah, he doesn't do very well with them because they die. So, but luckily he has a friend who kind of helps him out with that, and I guess it's kind of about, you know, trying for human connection when you feel like everything you touch dies, and it's, yeah.
I love
have
that.
been told it feels a bit autobiographical, so there's that.
Oh, I do love the whole idea of someone having to live with that type of thing. Is that the right? I don't know. But having to live with that, I think it's always interesting to explore that, and everyone explores it in different ways.
Yeah, and well, I think I'm kind of cursed to never be able to make anything with vampires, because when I decided to participate in Spooktober, my first idea was, of course, to make gay vampires, and to make it easy for myself, I decided to just make a list with just everything I like, like in terms of aesthetics or themes, and then just, you know, put as much into it as I can to like get maximum motivation to make something. And as I was brainstorming, it kind of moved from like, I think like a vampire and a cursed person, and like the vampire was kind of like immune to the curse. It kind of became a cursed person, the Grim Reaper, so the vampire was sadly written out of it very quickly.
No.
And that seems to happen every time I try to have vampires.
Goodbye, vampire.
And it's changed, you know, my cursed boy has horns and pointy ears, and I think, you know, that's also pretty good. But yeah. So if that sounds relevant to your interests, I would be very happy if you gave it a chance.
Yes, everyone, please check it out. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I think I am out of words. Just yeah, thank you for the opportunity to have this interview. It was a lovely experience.
Yes, it was so fun.
It was nice to just get to talk about myself for a bit.
I always love
it. Because yeah, like social media often feels like you yell into a void, and it can be hard to get feedback, and often it just doesn't necessarily feel like people are that interested in what you say. So it's just cool to do it on stream.
Yes, I love doing this type of stuff because I feel like everyone that I interview, I've only done 2 so far, but that's besides the point. Everyone that I interview deserves to have their work known because they're all amazing. So
yeah, I think it's definitely kind of difficult sometimes to gain that sort of confidence to like think that what you make is actually interesting.
Right.
So yeah.
Yay! Oh, everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah,
that
like I was
so
actually pretty nervous at the start because this public speaking is kind of scary.
Right. I always get nervous
it became
too, so it's
pretty
okay.
cozy and stuff pretty quickly. So
Yay!
That's nice.
So I will be posting this interview on YouTube. I have to post the other one I did too.
Good.
So if you guys do want to watch it and share it and spread Glueblade's amazing work, then I would love that. All right, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you for hosting the interview.
Yay! And I will talk to you later.
Sounds good.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so as for hi Usa, I'm gonna stop the stream and then I'm gonna restart it so I can do whatever. But yes, thank you all so much for joining. I had a ton of fun. Oh, pun time. Oh my gosh. Okay. Pun time. 2 scientists found a way to measure how old something is while they were eating dinner together at a nice restaurant. So, I guess you could say they made progress in dating. That was a really bad one. I am so sorry. Oh, pun time. Okay, did you hear about the extremely sarcastic baker? All he made was rye bread. Like W-R-Y. Okay. Wow. All right, I'm gonna end it here. I will restart stream immediately. Okay, bye-bye.